This is a meditation to deepen your sense of relaxation. Take a nice, slow, deep breath, breathing in and out. And picture yourself in a beautiful forest, just lying there on a blanket on the earth, hearing the wind and the trees, the birds, feeling the wind against your skin. And as you rest there in this peaceful forest, sense that the earth below you removes your tension from you as it pours from your body into the earth. Emptying all your tension in the muscles into the earth, letting the earth take everything you don't need in your body away. And feel that sense of relief, sense of calm in the body. And as you release all tension and negativity into the earth, you also sense at the same time the sunlight coming through the trees, pouring onto you and radiating into every cell of your body, restoring you with energy and light, bringing a sense of vitality and calmness. Just allow yourself to enjoy this experience in this peaceful forest, continuing to allow the earth to remove all the tension, dumping it into the deepest parts of the earth where it dissolves and disappears. And at the same time allowing that sunlight coming through the trees to pour into every cell of your body, filling it with life, vitality, calmness, clarity. Take one last deep breath and return now to your daily world and daily life, knowing you can come back to this visualization whenever you want and refresh yourself at any moment of the day.
Well, warm greetings, everyone, and welcome to all those who have joined us before. Welcome back. And for first-timers, we are very happy to have you with us today. Happy Easter to those who are celebrating, because tomorrow is Easter Sunday, or even just those who are enjoying the long weekend. My name is May, and I'm very pleased to host today's Ancient Wisdom for Modern Times. This series will be in 3 parts with our guest, Maureen Chen, touching on maintaining dignity in today's part 1. So before I introduce Maureen and her many roles and experiences, please know that we have Mandarin translation today, and you can get it by pressing the interpretation button. Maureen will be sharing for most part of the program, but she will invite you to ask any questions you may have towards the end. And you may post your question in the chat box anytime during the program, or otherwise at the end, you can put your hand up with the reactions button down below, and we will unmute you for the Q&A. So please allow me to introduce our guest facilitator, Maureen Chen. So Maureen, whom I might sometimes refer to as Moni, as we know her. She has been practicing and teaching meditation with the Brahma Kumaris for 46 years. Living in Asia for 32 years, from 1981, Maureen has helped to establish Raja Yoga meditation centers throughout Asia. In Hong Kong, she was the chairperson of Unity for Peace, secretary of the Asian Business Leadership Exchange, and also helped to establish FoodLink, a charity linking hotels and restaurants with social welfare organizations. And then in Cambodia, she was instrumental in setting up living values education programs and the Khmer Independent Life Team, which is a social enterprise for victims of landmines. In 2010, over a span of 4 years, she organized 50 dialogues throughout India for the Future of Power project, bringing leaders together to explore the use of soft power. And from 2014 to 2018, she was the coordinator of the National Office of the Brahma Kumaris in Australia. And currently, she is the coordinator of Yarra Valley Living Centre near Melbourne, Australia. Maureen has facilitated nonviolent communication workshops in prisons, companies, schools, and organizations all over the world, and is also the author of the book, Mystic at the Edge, a Western Woman Colored by Asia. So that's a plateful, isn't it? So Maureen has been with us on Meditation Cafe 3 times before, and we love having her. So welcome back, Maureen.
Nice to be back with you, and thank you again for the invitation.
Yeah, over to you.
Okay, thanks, May. So hello to everyone from a very kind of going into cold autumn. You can see the trees behind. And one thing nice about being in Australia are the seasons. So yeah, it's quite lovely to be in autumn, even though it's getting a bit cool. So this topic of dignity, I think, follows on very well from, you know, some of the workshops I've also been doing, nonviolent communication, because we talk so much about respect. And yet there are some complications with that. And I think dignity goes a lot deeper. And this series is going to be really looking at how we practice the core of Raj Yoga meditation, which is soul consciousness. And as we go through this, I think you'll see that our practice of soul consciousness really encapsulates dignity in its essence. And so, yeah, I really find this to be such an important topic. And I was open to these ideas by someone called Donna Hicks. So you might want to look her up later. But she's someone who was doing conflict resolution all around the world at very high levels for many years. But she wondered why nothing was really changing, even though the methodologies were good, you know, people came with a willingness, but she just found that there was something in the room that just wasn't allowing people to really see each other more than anything else and really listen with their heart. And so many agreements failed because of this. And she put it down to this one word, dignity. So let me define what dignity is. So dignity is a birthright of value and worth of each and every human being. We don't have to earn it. We don't have to work for it. The fact that I exist, the fact that I'm in this world, I deserve dignity. Dignity is regard, good wishes, a pure vision, without distaste, dislike, or judgment. It's total acceptance. And what they've been able to research is that when we are really connected with someone and we have this attitude of dignity towards them, it activates their limbic system, which is pleasurable. It brings a feeling of connection. And so it really goes to the kind of like the heart of the soul. That's why I say it's like soul consciousness. Soul consciousness sees the being. It doesn't look at what the being is doing in this world, whether they are behaving in correct ways or incorrect ways, but just seeing beyond that to the intrinsic goodness. Because as we have come to understand that hurt people. So if people are behaving in ways that are not helpful or are even harmful, it's not because that person is a bad person. It's because that person is hurting. And that's why another thing that we learn in the teachings of Raj Yoga is that we need to not only not give sorrow, but equally, we have to learn not to take sorrow. Because if we take sorrow, then it's only natural that somewhere along the line we will give sorrow or we will cause sorrow. Maybe it's not that we openly give sorrow, but even if we are becoming ill because of it, if we're becoming withdrawn, if we're becoming closed down, it does give sorrow to others because they keep wondering about us, they miss our company, they feel our withdrawal, and we can't give happiness. That's what happens. We could only kind of fake a happiness if we're unhappy inside. And so for us to be able to have dignity for others, we need to really be aware of what I've shared before, this nonviolent communication, and understand our needs and learn to communicate them, learn to get our needs met in the least harmful way possible. And that's a whole big study, nonviolent communication, and how to do that. But if we take sorrow, it's only natural, really, you'd have to use the word natural, that we're going to give sorrow. And so when we start giving sorrow, that's when it's hard for people to really respect us. And this is where respect becomes a little bit tricky because, we say that people deserve respect, but if somebody's doing something that's really harmful, it becomes complicated to give respect. But it's not complicated to help that person maintain their dignity. It's like bringing them back into the awareness of who they really are. It's that pure vision, the good wishes, and, really the acceptance, the non-judgment, the lack of, dislike that we might have for someone, where we feel they've done something really inappropriate, and it's hard to have respect. And so this is why at those meetings where they tried to have respect for each other, they couldn't, because there was really a basic dislike or a pain because of the hurt that had been imposed, not necessarily from the people in the room, but the people they represented. You know, so for example, in Australia, the Indigenous people here were very, very badly mistreated. I mean, I personally, you know, I don't think I haven't mistreated an Aboriginal person, but I represent the people that did that harm. So it's very hard for an Indigenous person, an Aboriginal person, to feel comfortable with me, to trust me. And I really understand that. But if I could cultivate this vision of dignity and really give the person the experience that I see them, I acknowledge them, I acknowledge their worth, then perhaps they could begin to shift out of that mistrust and, you know, the hurt and pain that they're feeling because of what has happened what's been done to them, from people who look like me and live in this country like me. You know, the white people here live such a privileged life and dominate to a great extent the whole, you know, culture here. So, but personally, if I'm able to go into my awareness of being a soul and see this other person as a soul and not see their body, not see how they might be behaving now because of the mistreatment of the Indigenous people here, they are often not behaving in ways that the white people would respect them, because they've often turned to drugs or to alcohol, which really is like a self-medication. If I'm hurting, if I'm suffering, I try to numb that suffering. So many people would turn to alcohol as a way of escape, of some kind of a numbness that I can stop the pain. And so if I see the other person, you know, how they are now, and I might judge them and think that, you know, they're not doing well in their life or something like that. But I have to see, first of all, why their condition has become like that. But to go even deeper, it's to see, who is this being in front of me? Not to even look at how they're behaving or you know, the habits they've adopted to survive in this very white world. For example, I'm just using this as an example, but really see them for their intrinsic worth. And very interestingly, everyone, now think about this, but everyone has a sense of their own worth, right? Everyone has a sense of their own worth. That's why we feel so bad, because we know that we are worthy. We know that we have something to offer this world. And that is a fact. We all do. And we know it deep down. And so when people start to see that, really see it, not like, you know, just to be nice or, you know, to be kind or to be even compassionate. It goes deeper than that. It's really to see that being as to who they really are. Then I've experienced that people's whole demeanor changes, the eyes in particular change, because they begin to drop some of that guard, that defense. And it's a very vulnerable state that people can go into when they drop that. And it's very beautiful, but I have to be very careful with that, because if I then said something or did something to, to shock them, here they are opening up and trusting, and then I say something that, breaks that trust, then it's very hard for them to open again. And so I think dignity is not just something that I can just do in a moment. I think I need to be aware and adopt dignity as a way of seeing another person as a natural practice. So it's not something I just apply in the situation, but it's the way I see everyone, that I see others as being worthy and worthwhile in this life that they have. So this is really different to respect, because respect has something to do with earning. And I think you all agree that it is actually quite hard to respect people that don't earn that respect. And so dignity is a word that goes so much more to the core of the being and has no judgment, has nothing to do with their achievements or their accomplishments or even their qualities. It's just something that I hold for each and every one. And that's why I say it's very close to this soul conscious vision, which just sees the original, the innate qualities of the soul hidden behind the kind of projection of this defense and fear and anger, whatever it is that people are doing, as I said, to survive in this world. And dignity can cut through that. So you can, I don't know if you can see that difference between dignity and respect. And it gets further complicated because we use this word dignified. And I think it's used in a way that is not helpful because dignified often, we often use it for someone who dresses well, who speaks well. Oh, they act very dignified. I don't think that's what dignified really is. Dignified is when people can hold their dignity. So one thing is for me to see someone and hold that vision of their dignity, regardless of how the person's behaving. But then the other thing is when, in spite of all the challenges that someone has, they're able to hold themselves. That is dignity. That's upholding my sense of worth, even when others might be putting me down, judging me, disliking me. That, I think, is the true meaning of dignified, when we really can embody that state. And it takes quite a lot of self-knowing and a confidence that comes from within. It's not something that people can give to us. It's something we need to work for. And I'll just share a story of someone who I know in Australia. He's from an African descent. He was in America. He was brought up in Germany. He said he experienced no discrimination. His parents were in the army, very well respected. And he didn't experience any discrimination there. When he went to the USA, he was shocked at the way people treated him, because he never knew that he, wasn't worth their regard. It was like a completely new experience, and he suffered quite a lot of abuse. But one particular occasion, these young men, they attacked him and they put him to the ground, and they said to him, one of them said, "Kiss my boots and we'll let you go." Can you imagine? Kiss my boot and I'll let you go. And otherwise they were kicking him and hitting him. And in his mind, he thought to himself, you can take anything away from me, even my life, but you cannot take my dignity. So he had this very powerful, very courageous sense of dignity within himself. And amazingly, just when he had that thought, a man came out of his house and got rid of these guys. He said, "Get out of here, otherwise I'll shoot you." That's what they do in America. But anyway, they all left him. But that changed his life. He realized that dignity is what he lives for and what he will die for. He had so much value for his self-worth. And in Australia, he's a very well-known singer, Armando Hurley, if you want to look him up. Armando, Armondo, Armando Hurley. He's a singer, but what he does as a volunteer is go to schools and youth clubs to talk to marginalized groups, people who aren't treated well or don't have their sense of dignity, to tell his story and to empower young people to find their dignity and uphold their dignity. So there's a very good saying that says, wisdom comes to those who serve. And you see that situation that he found himself in, although it was terrible and probably one of the worst moments of his life, the most dangerous, was the turning point for him to make his life so worthwhile, a dedication to others that may be facing that kind of attitude from people. So this is the kind of dignity, dignified we're talking about. And you can see how that's different to respect. Even if I said I have my self-respect, it's nice, it's good, it makes me stable, but somehow it doesn't have the same power. I think this dignity has a sense of power to it when we feel dignified, and also when we see others with dignity, we empower them, as opposed to respect. Respect is a very great word. To give respect to others, to have self-respect is so important. And maybe I used to think it was the most important, but when I came across this whole area of dignity, I thought, oh, I think that goes even deeper. And so that's why I'm sharing these thoughts with you. So I'd like to share from Hicks the dignity model and some of the ways that we might violate others' dignity. So this is a list that she has put together. So these are some of the ways we may violate. We may, violate means like violence. We may ride over another's dignity. And if you've got a pen and paper, I think it's good to write it. Otherwise, I'll share it with May and she can share it with you. But some of the ways we may violate others' dignity. The first one is excluding someone. Excluding them based on their nationality, their intellectual capacity. You know, in Australia, there's such strong laws on this. And in fact, there was a person who had a mental challenge who came to one of our programs with their parents. And this person was making a little bit of a loud sound. They had a mental problem. And it was a program where there was someone singing quite soft and beautiful songs. And I said to the parents, do you think you might be able to sit near the door? So if your child, you know, makes a lot of loud sound, you could just quietly go out. And you know what they said to me? They said, we could charge you for discrimination for what you just said. So the laws here are very strong in standing by people with differences. So I thought, oh, wow, I'd just come back to Australia. I didn't know these laws, but I quite appreciate the way there is such a respect for others. So not excluding and not ignoring. And, you know, studies were done on babies, and what they found, and children, what they found that was the children that were physically abused were even less impacted than children that were ignored, not held, not loved, not seen, not acknowledged. Can you imagine? That had a bigger impact than even physical abuse. So when we ignore others, like we're talking about that limbic system, it's like that soul is not given any dignity, and that soul feels, I would imagine, like they don't exist. And that's even worse than experiencing pain. Can you imagine? So I think this is telling us also something about dignity. So ignoring, misunderstanding. I mean, sometimes we can't help that, but we can also make the effort to try and understand. So sometimes misunderstanding is a laziness. We just don't try. We don't take the time. We don't invest in the person to understand. Treating unfairly. Of course, that's a pretty obvious one. That really makes a person feel diminished, less worthy, all of those things, but also very angry. You know, that's one of the things that does bring up a lot of anger when there's unfairness. So the main thing we're looking at with these is checking ourselves that we're not excluding, ignoring, misunderstanding through not trying to understand. Of course, there'll be misunderstandings, but I can invest some time to connect and understand. Treating unfairly and being dismissive, like someone says something and I just, oh yeah, but, you know, this kind of thing where we just don't listen, we just dismiss people's ideas. Judging, so that's another big one, judging in any way. Patronizing, that's a little bit more subtle, but we apparently seem to be kind and helpful, but underneath it, there's a little bit of a feeling of superiority. So when we help the other person and when we're kind, we have a little bit of feeling that, oh, I'm helping you. It's very subtle, but it puts down the other person. They don't feel equal. They don't feel, it's kind of even hard for them to take your help when we act in this superior way. condescending. Condescending is also characterized by having a superior attitude. So we put people down. We might even give a compliment, but somehow it's putting the other person down in some way or looking down on them. Autocratic, a domineering manner without taking into consideration the other person's feelings. So if we're autocratic, we make a decision without considering what the other person might want, what they might feel about that decision. We just take a decision. That's also, in a way, dismissive of the other person completely. So what we need to check in with to see whether we really are treating others with this dignity that we've just been talking about, and also to what extent I can uphold my own dignity. So I'd like to pause for a few minutes just so that we can think about people in our life that maybe if we reflect on it, we can think, oh, yeah, I helped that person, but I had a superior attitude that wasn't giving them their due dignity. So think about people in your life. And if you're not sure, just write down their name and come back to it later. And then secondly, am I able to uphold my own dignity? And what would it take for me to be able to do that? So I think what it takes for me to maintain an attitude of dignity to each and every soul is what I referred to as that soul consciousness. Because the belief in the practice of Raj Yoga meditation, the belief is that all of us, by nature, are beings of peace and love, wisdom, purity. This is the innate nature of each and every being, soul. So if anyone's acting in a way that's different to that, it's because they're under some influence. It's not who they are. It's not who they are. No one is an angry person. They're a person that's been affected by something that has brought out this reaction because they're needing something. So, but they're not an angry person. There's no such thing as an angry soul. It's a soul that's been influenced, come under some influence, and the same for myself. And the way to come back or to maintain my dignity is to realize that I am a soul, that my original nature is peaceful, loving, happy. And I was born on this earth. I belong here. No one has a right to say I don't belong here. I belong here. This is my home, this planet Earth. So just keep that dignity, no matter what others say, how people treat us, we need to maintain that dignity. I know as a child, I read a book called The Little Princess. It's really a great book for children, but I read it again in my adult life. And since then, I've often given it as a gift to children. There's, I think, there's a movie also. I think there's a movie called The Little Princess. I'd have to. Yeah, it's, I think, Shirley Temple. She's in that. But it's a very beautiful story about a young girl who was very wealthy, like a little princess, and ended up with nothing and becoming a maid in a boarding school. But she never lost her sense of who she is. She never lost her dignity. So she kept this power inside. So yeah, I recommend you find that movie or that book and share it with others, because it's such a good example of what that dignity is, that no matter what happens, can't take my dignity away from me. Now, coming back to this idea of how we kind of resolve conflict with others, and the work that Donna has done, Donna Hicks, and what she has brought to light, is that if we sit with others with that feeling of dignity, that we are in dignity, we give others dignity, it creates kind of a platform for souls to recover from the hurts, the injustices, and all the things that have happened. Otherwise, people keep coming up with these very challenging behaviors. And when someone has a challenging behavior, when people react or act in ways that are, not easy for us to deal with, then what often happens is we react from our weakness. So somebody's angry or accusing me, and then I react to that. And then that kind of challenges the other person's behavior. And we get into a cycle of negativity. And what happens is we forget the original issue that we were meeting about, and we just get into this action and reaction cycle. So one thing we need to learn to do is sit with someone who we have conflict with, who's out of our comfort zone, and really be able to sit and not react and be able to keep connected. The way to do this is through dignity, keeping my dignity, giving the others dignity. So can you just ask yourself, can I do that? Can I do it with everyone? Are there people in my life that I just cannot sit with? And if there are some people, just write down the name or note it in your mind and try and see whether you can, work on yourself to bring that stability through self-respect, through dignity, and really sit with that person again with that attitude of dignity, with the vision of dignity, that pure vision, seeing the worth of the other person. It takes patience, it takes willingness, but more than anything else, it's a desire to connect. And that's where the nonviolent communication dovetails into this, because the whole aim of nonviolent communication, taught by Marshall Rosenberg, is that we're able to stay, we can want to communicate because we want to stay connected, That's the whole reason why we want to be able to communicate. And we learn to communicate non-violently so we can keep that connection. So if we're not having that sense of dignity, there's kind of an unspoken conversation, if you like, going on amongst the minds of the people in the room. So we might be trying to have some, conflict resolution or some dialogue. We're trying to come together to resolve some issues. But if there's not that dignity for each other and really seeing the person and that they have it is valid for them to have an opinion, to have their feelings, whatever. But we have to validate the person's sense of worth. So otherwise, what happens in the room is, even though we might all speak nicely with each other, somehow there's this thing going on where, yeah, but I know what you do. And, yeah, you're talking like that, but I know you don't really believe it. This kind of thing, is going on without being spoken. And this is why Donna was saying these conflict resolutions never worked, because it derails the problem solving that can be so productive, these unspoken conversations. So we're speaking one thing, but something else is going on inside our mind. And we can't stop that unless we can see the person with dignity. That is the way. And that's the force behind our ability to be able to connect. Because also what happens is that the people who we're trying to solve conflict with can't let go of how they've been badly treated. They can't forgive unless we name the injustices, acknowledge them, and address them. And we only really are willing to do that when we see the person is worth it. See, often we don't think the person is worth it. You just look at your own mind. Oh, it's not worth bothering about this person. What do you mean it's not worth it? Are they not worth it? Is that a sense of dignity that I'm upholding for that person? So whenever we have that thought, oh, it's just not worth it about someone, check again. And you'll often see that the person who's behaving badly is hurting. They're not meaning to hurt you, but they are hurting, and that's why they're hurting you. Don't you want to remove that hurt that the person has by trying to understand, to communicate, to try and help them to name the injustice that they've suffered? Because people need recognition for what they've suffered and the violations of their dignity. So this indignity is like a major stumbling block in a relationship. And you see, when we feel that I'm right and you're wrong, that's already like a superiority. Why can't we listen to the other person and see they could also be right? Maybe both of us are right in our own way, but we have to do the work of listening and connecting and communicating. So we need to learn how to be in relationship so that everyone feels seen, heard, understood, and included. Seen, heard, understood, and included. Now think about those 4 ways. Don't you want to be seen, heard, understood, and included? Do you not want that? If you want it, so does everyone else. So am I going to take the time and effort to see, hear, understand, and include another person? Or am I just going to say, they're not worth it? That's when we're not giving dignity to another. And the sense of well-being that a person derives from feeling understood and treated with dignity is really astounding. You just think yourself, when you've been seen, understood, and treated with dignity, and how you feel. The person may not agree with your point of view. They may not. That's not the important thing. But they tried, and they've at least understood what you are saying, what you are feeling, what you believe. They can't help it if they don't agree, but at least they've tried and they've listened and heard. I've been heard out, and that is enough. Most people don't need us to agree. That's the surprising thing. Most people don't need us to agree with them. What they need more than that is to be seen, heard, understood, and included in the decision, in the point of view. So what we have to do also is to check that we're not in some way kind of manipulating others to get them to do what we want. That's another kind of an attitude of superiority. And it doesn't work, because why do you want someone to do something? Do you want them to do something because they're afraid? Do you want them to do something because they want to please you? Or do you want them to do something because I'd like them to understand that it's a good thing to do? Why do you want someone to do something? And if people do it just to please you, or just because they're afraid, they won't do it when you're not looking. They won't do it when you're not around. They won't have understood anything or accepted anything. It's all fear-based. Some people will be blindly obedient to you just because that's their cultural upbringing, or they respect authority. But others will oppose you. And so dignity will enable you to deal with everyone. Because I don't know about you, but I don't really want obedience that's blind obedience. I want obedience that comes from a shared understanding. Otherwise, it seems like I'm controlling the other person. So we need to think deeply about why we want someone to do something and how we're getting them to do it. And we can't be connected, really, if they're only acting out of fear or to please. They're not connected with me. They're just suppressed by me, allowing me to have authority over them and control them. So then, again, I don't really respect people that are afraid of me or I have control of. We don't respect them. And so the way to start bringing that respect is to start seeing their worth and have dignity, and then bringing them around to hopefully doing the things we'd like them to do because they understand and they can see the point of it. Otherwise, maybe they're not meant to be doing that particular work, or, there has to be ways that we can both get our needs met, not that we suppress others. Sometimes we're just coming from a place of ego. So what we need to do is to think also the next step. Is there anyone that I need to forgive that has violated my dignity? Can you just think about that for a minute? Is there anyone that I need to forgive because they've violated my dignity? Then the next question is, how am I going to forgive them? I would like to suggest there, if possible, if the person's still living, if the person is contactable, there might be a way to communicate so that the other person can listen and understand what impact their action had. And in my experience, when I've done this, like one lady, she really cheated. She really cheated. And I just didn't know what to do, because normally I just forgive and forget. But I thought, I can't just pretend nothing happened here. But it took me about a year. And then I thought, this is not good, because we're not in communication because of what happened. So I wrote a long letter of what I thought happened. I said, look, maybe this is not the way it was, but this is what I understood happened. And I wrote it all, I wrote it all down, what I understood. And I also then said in the letter, if you understood this differently, or if you think something else happened, can you let me know? Because maybe you have another point of view that I haven't seen. That woman wrote back and said, I did this because of pure greed. It was pure greed because she was trying to help a charity. And that's why she cheated, to get that money, because she wanted to help people. And, it was in a developing country. Maybe she thought, it's easy for me to get more money. That's not the point. The point is she cheated. And it was someone that I trusted her more than I trusted myself. I thought she was a person of such high integrity. That's probably what hurt the most, because I thought, if I can't trust her, I can't trust anyone. And it really hurt, because I trusted her so completely. But she wrote back and she said, yeah, it was pure greed and I want to make things right. And once she said that, it was like it was all over. I don't know how we're going to make it right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it takes. But just that the person acknowledged that was a big thing. So what I'm saying is, sometimes people have violated me and I need to forgive them, but maybe there's some communication that needs to happen before that. Even recently, someone was criticizing and complaining, and I just sent a very short little message and I said, may I suggest that you stop criticizing and complaining and acknowledge what I am doing well. I know my shortcomings and I'll work on those. I'm sorry for those shortcomings, but, I did my best. And then that person came running to me and said, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Let's not do it like that, because I was trying to do something that was a bit of a stretch for me, and I was doing my best, and I didn't do that bad a job, but wasn't, up to her expectations and not up to mine either. And so, but I really did my best. And it was all resolved just very easily. And, I was going to be working on that particular job for about a week. And so it was important that I said that straight away. Otherwise, it would have been very tense between us. And I needed that person to stop criticizing and complaining, because I was really doing the best I could do. And it worked out so beautifully. So, often it's our lack of ability to be open and clear and ask for what we need, because what I needed was not to be criticized and complained about, and just to be acknowledged that I'm doing my best. So, think of how you might be able to have that person, communicate with you better and in a kinder, gentler, encouraging way, or whatever it is. But we need to come to that point of forgiveness. It's no point holding hurts. They eat us up. They really do eat us up, and it's like that person lives inside us like a cancer almost, because it grows, because then we don't trust another, or if something happens, it triggers that original pain, it adds to it. Rather than being just a little thing, it becomes a big thing because it's adding to what has already happened. So just think about that for a moment. Who do I need to forgive? And how am I going to do that? So I think I've shared quite a bit, and I'd like to have a bit of a meditation before we end rather than now. And so can I just see how you're all doing with this? Whether you have any questions, you can either raise your hand, and May will be able to, unmute you so that you can communicate with me. Or you can put it in the chat. So I think I saw someone try to raise their physical hand, but you need, if you could go to reactions down the bottom and click on the raise hand.
Or any feedback?
Yeah, I know it actually, this is quite a new topic. I found when I heard it, it resonated as having a lot of importance, but I took a while to digest what this dignity is.
Yeah. It's something new to me. Well, newish, something for me to digest as well.
Yeah. What do you think, May? Can you come on and sit next to me for a minute?
Sure.
Oh, you knocked me off. That's good. That's good. So what do you think, May? Because, do you think, can you see the difference between respect and dignity? Like how respect somehow, it's hard to respect people who are not behaving in the right word. The word respect doesn't it's hard. It's complicated. The word was complicated. And I think, but to have dignity and tying it into what we talk about in Raj Yoga about soul consciousness, having that vision of the intrinsic worth of an individual.
It's almost like not letting anyone fall, or not letting anyone lose their self-worth.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like that's what you've been saying.
Yeah, that's a nice way to say it. Not letting anyone lose their self-worth. So when I give people dignity, I help them in a way to hold their dignity, but also I can see their worth. And, it's just like even one of the examples, one of our senior teachers, she was traveling in India, and there was a woman who was cleaning the kind of picnic ground. She was sweeping the picnic ground. And it was Dadi Gulzar, actually. And she asked that person with so much dignity, she said, "Is it okay if we have our meal here?" And I was so touched, because often when we see someone cleaning a picnic ground, you know, you just think, oh, I hope they move away so they don't get dust on us, you know. But she asked her for permission. And it was just beautiful. The vision that she had on this lady was beautiful. And of course, that lady would feel, oh, someone's seen me. I am worth something, because that was the other interesting deep thing I heard, that everyone knows their self-worth. Deep down, people know it. And so when you see it and acknowledge it, it just brings it to the fore.
It very much starts with how we see others.
Very much. Vision is key to this. And that's why, you know, even this thing in Raj Yoga that we practice, drishti, where it's about seeing others as the soul and not seeing others as a body. That's a very deep practice and a very good practice.
There is a question, Moni.
Yeah.
When should we speak the truth, please?
Well, we should always speak the truth. We should always speak the truth.
Yes.
But I also want to add to that it's good to speak the truth when we're not feeling charged. You know, it might be truth, but if we've got any kind of emotion behind it, it seems like a self-defense or a force. And so the other person can't hear it very well. But when we speak truth, when we're calm, we're not reactive, and we also see the worth of the other person, like it's because we really would like to stay connected. So that's why we want to speak our truth. Then it can usually be heard. So it's not so much the point about speaking the truth, but getting the other person to be able to hear it is the point.
Yeah, otherwise it's like we're throwing our annoyance on them. They see that more than the message we're trying to get across.
Yeah.
When we're not cool, they can see that we're not cool, not staying cool.
Yeah, and there's a very nice saying, prove the truth with manners. I think that's very nice.
And we've got Peggy saying, I think when we say treat people with respect, we often mean treat people with dignity. Now, I think Moni is saying that there's a difference.
It's subtle.
Or do you think it's also...
It's subtle, but the way we use respect, like, you know, that point that it's so complicated to respect someone who's doing harm. You know, if someone's doing harm, then it's not that easy to respect them. But I think just this dignity goes behind, it goes deeper than the respect. It goes behind, you know. To me, it makes a difference. And as I said, this Donna Hicks, who was working in conflict resolution for so many years, now all of her focus is on bringing dignity into people's awareness, because she feels that's made all the difference in conflict resolution. Because with respect, it's often not that hard to be superficial. So we give respect, but you know, like she was saying, in the room, there's all this unspoken conversation going on. So we're giving respect with our lips. So yeah, there's just some subtlety there.
It means you see, no matter what is on the surface, you see the worth of the person.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking out loud, from what I understand, it's like, even though they've done wrong, there's something in them that's not mean to, or is not aware, and there's something better in them that they may not realize, maybe.
Yeah, and we cannot diminish their worth because of what they've done. They're still worthy. They're still worthy. But we might diminish our respect because of the way they're behaving. You know, like,
Okay, sorry, let's see if can we or how to practice dignity in silence without interacting with others. Can we?
Yeah.
And how?
Definitely.
How to practice
Definitely.
dignity in silence without interacting with others.
Yeah, well, just being in a room, you know, with another person and, you know, like say you're in a negotiating table or in a conflict resolution and you just keep seeing everyone with that dignity, seeing their worth, seeing how they are just as important as anyone else in this room and not overriding their comments, not dismissing, not judging, even if the way they say it might be very rough or very accusing. I don't listen to how it's being said. I just listen to what is being said. So I really try and hear and not get distracted by the way that they're talking. Because if someone's hurting, they'll often be angry. They'll often be blaming and accusive. So I try to listen behind that to see what they're saying. And I can even try and ask them questions to get behind it.
We have to see through the emotions, don't we?
Yeah, because people can't help it if they're charged or if they're carrying pain and hurt. But like I said, especially this kind of thing where, you know, just because I'm a certain color, I'll represent something and then people may see me as something. But if I start looking at them and see their worth, they'll feel, oh, this one is not seeing me like everyone else looks at me. This person is really seeing and listening and trying to understand. That's what's important.
Another question from Debbie. When can we be angry?
Okay, that's a good question.
Yes.
We can be angry with the right person at the right time in the right way. That's very hard. Usually we're messy. We're often angry with the person who didn't actually cause my anger. Like we might have got angry with the boss and we come home and we get angry with the children because we're feeling hurt and frustrated and annoyed. So, and the right way. And again, going back to the nonviolent communication, they talk a lot about anger and the value of anger, because anger is an indication that something's not right, that something's not right with me. So that's good to acknowledge. But he says, don't be angry at anyone, but you can just like let out your feeling of anger. And he gave the example that he came home from a really hard day being at a prison, and he came home and his two boys were making a lot of noise, and he shouted, he said, I've had a really hard day and I need some quiet. See, he's not shouting at them. He's just shouting for help almost. And maybe because they're his children, one of them said to him, Dad, sounds like you need some empathy. But he wasn't shouting at them. He was shouting for his need. So at the most, if we have to shout, like you said, I need help, you know, it's just like, you know, it's good not to shout, but don't shout at anyone.
It's like taking
anger is a
responsibility.
very important energy to understand. What were you saying, May?
It's like taking responsibility.
Yeah, because if we suppress
acknowledging
anger,
it's my issue, not You usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's my need. And if we suppress anger, it comes out, in passive aggression. It comes out somewhere. It's, you can't take things in without them coming out, like the sorrow. So if you're angry, it's going to come out somewhere. So you need to learn to manage it. There's a very good book by Mike George, Don't Get Mad, Get Wise. Don't get mad, get wise. In fact, I asked him to write a book on anger because so many people told me, angry people told me, they really don't like getting angry. They suffer from their anger. They're so fed up with their anger. So I said, Mike, please write a book to help the angry people. And it's a very good book. It's really helped people I know.
Yeah, it's a great book. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, so someone was asking how to control anger.
Yeah.
And
It's communication. If I'm angry, it's because I need something. Just think about that. If I'm angry, it's because I'm needing something. So try and identify what you need, and then you'll be able to see how I might be able to get that need met. And it won't get met by just being angry. It'll get met by working out what I need and how to get it met. Yeah, like I might be in love with someone, for example, but they don't love me. So I might be angry with them. But, I can't make them love me. So I've got to find a way to get love in another way if that's my need. How am I going to get that love met? I can't get it met by someone who doesn't love me, but I get angry with the person who doesn't love me. Doesn't make sense. How's that going to help anyone? So I've got to see the need and see how to meet the need in the least harmful way for myself and for another. And a logical way. It's not going to work if I just try and make someone love me or get angry because they don't love me. Come on.
And usually when we're angry, we become illogical.
Yeah, that's why he says, don't get mad.
Yeah.
That means crazy. Don't get mad, get wise. And we say he's lost his mind. When somebody's angry, oh, he's lost it. Yeah.
Well,
okay,
Maureen,
should we finish with
thanks
some
for that.
meditation?
Yes.
Some meditation now, if there's no more questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go into this dignity and see whether we're able to get some feeling for it. So first of all, just hold this word in your mind. Dignity. Dignified. And just ask yourself, is it true? Is it right that everyone who's born on this earth has a right to dignity or not? Does every single being have a right to dignity? Do I have a right to dignity? If I have a right to dignity, am I able to uphold my dignity and be dignified? What does it look like when I'm dignified? when I'm dignified, I know my intrinsic worth. I don't have to achieve anything, accomplish anything. I am a human being. Sometimes I forget the second part of that, the being. I'm a living being. By nature, I'm a being of peace. Being of love. And when my peace and love are nurtured, I'm so easily able to contribute to the world in whatever way I am meant to. So let me nurture my own sense of peace and love. Understand peace, understand love, and let them grow and flourish within. And learn how to nurture the peace and love of others. Bring to mind experiences where I've been able to do this for another. And just reflect on the wonderful feelings within. When I acknowledge another and they feel acknowledged. It's not really that hard to do, but it does take awareness. Be aware of the original self, the being of peace and love within each and every living being. I am Shanti, peace. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Maureen. In your meditation, you mentioned the word intrinsic nature. And there is a question someone was asking what that is and whether they are equal for all or less for some.
The intrinsic nature of every soul is peace, love, happiness, wisdom, bliss. And so it can be nurtured and brought out from each and every one. So everyone has this, but it's up to us then to develop ourselves further. Intrinsic as opposed to acquired. So our intrinsic nature is peace and love and happiness, joy. But the acquired nature is what has happened to us through life. So we build up all these defenses and survival mechanisms. We acquire methods to survive, but that's not who we are. That's just our protection, our armor to deal with the world.
So it can be developed. So, yeah. Hey, I hope that answers the question. And well, thanks very much, Maureen, for being with us today and bringing up the topic of dignity. It's something I hear of more and more so now, actually, in dealing with others. But to actually understand it and pay attention to what it means, it's like you say, it's quite deep. And thank you for introducing that to us. And hopefully, it's something that our journey to understanding something always has to begin somewhere. So thank you for this session. So we will have Maureen with us for part 2 and part 3. And I think part 2 would also be a follow-on and related to today's topic, you said, Maureen. So yes, I might just show what's on. So we have part 2, soul consciousness versus role consciousness. And I'm sure Maureen will explain more what both of that means and its importance. And that would be in a month's time, Saturday, 6th of May, exactly the same time as today. And part 3 will be in June, 10th of June, also on a Saturday and at the same time. And we will send this out to you via email with details as we come closer to the date, maybe about 10 days before the program. But if you'd like to book it into your calendar, that would be great too. So just before we sign out, I'd like to invite everyone to put on your gallery mode and turn on your cameras just to say hi to Moni and so we can see all of you. And thanks to those who have posted your question. I hope we have managed to cover and answer it.
Very nice. Thank you for joining, everyone. I really appreciate that you've given your Saturday afternoon for this.
Yeah.
It shows that you really care about others, yourself and others. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening and see you next time.